Okay, so this is the last little tutorial in this fruit salad video. So the last film is normally the most exciting. Um, so what we have is we have our fruit salad animation, which is being built like so. And so I'm going to add a few extra elements to it. So I'm going to take fruit salad, the actual word, and I'm going to add an effect. If you right click on it, you get lots and lots and lots and lots of options. And a lot of them are pretty scary. But I'm just going to go into here into stylize, and I'm going to use glow. And glow is a very, very good filter. It's very quick, and you can add some pretty simple and quite nice effect. And it just adds a little something to it. The next thing I'm going to add to this is I'm going to add particles. And particles, again, are quite a frightening filter in that they're quite complicated. There's lots of options, and it's very easy to get them looking pretty ropey. And so I'm going to show you how to get them looking pretty good. So I'm going to create a solid, and it doesn't really matter what color it is because you're just using it as a basis for the particles, which you'll see why in a moment. I'm going to go to simulation and particle world. So what I've created here is I've created lots and lots of particles. And they're pretty ugly at the moment. They kind of look like some kind of firework display gone wrong. And it's got a big grid, which is no good as well. And so I'm going to get rid of that grid and that funny little box on the top. And grid and guides will show you the grid and the access box, and I'll get rid of that. All of this stuff, it doesn't really mean anything, and I won't worry about it too much. So, how can I make these look a little bit better? The good thing about them is they are integrated into your composition, so that when you move around with the camera, they move around as well in 3D space. So I'm going to take you through these options. So the first option you're going to come to is birth rate. If you increase that, it will increase the amount of particles that are created. And I don't really want to create that many, so I'm going to drop it down to 0.5. Longevity is how long they stay alive. These particles at the moment stay alive 1 second, and then they will start dying off. So I'm going to increase that to 10, which is the length of my sequence. So now they will go and they will stay alive for 10 seconds. And so these guys have dropped off all the way down here somewhere. The producer is, see this little red thing in the middle? That sphere is the producer. So what I want to do is I want to change that. So I want to make this a little bit bigger. Because I want to kind of create a little atmosphere for these particles to live in and for the fruit salad animation to live in. So I'm going to make it pretty big. So now, when you turn around, you can really see these particles, where they are. Okay. The next thing is physics. Physics is all of the things like gravity, resistance, and turbulence, and you can kind of create different types of animation. So this creates a vortex. So they work as if they would. It creates a twirly kind of thing, and so this creates a vortex. So you can kind of create like tornadoes and things like that. They take a little bit of time to work, but you can get them working. The velocity is how fast they come out of this sphere. So I'm going to lower that a little bit. So they're coming out a little bit too quick. So just a little bit. So now when I click on it, what's happening is they're just getting pulled down by gravity. So I'm going to lower gravity. I'm going to turn that down to 0.1. So now they're affected by a little bit of gravity, maybe no gravity. Let's see what happens. So there's no gravity. So now these particles are not really going anywhere. But these particles are a little bit, they're a bit dull. And so I am going to change the way that they look. So if you go into particle, you can change them. You can change them to stars. You can change them to faded spheres and shaded spheres. And I think I think that looks pretty good. And so I'm going to just change the colour. The colour is mapped from birth to death. So when they're born, when they're yellow, and then they die red. So over their period of life, they'll go from yellow through to orange through to red. So I'm going to change them to white. And I'm going to change these to white as well. So now I've got some white particles that are sort of floating in the air. So let's preview that. So it just creates a sort of illusion that they're in a sort of an atmosphere. And there maybe not enough of them, so I can increase my birth rate. So I go here and just increase it a little bit. So that gives them a few more. So particles are pretty powerful, and you can take these things and then you can post-produce them, and so you can blur them, and so I can go effect and blur, and I can add a say something like a box blur to them. So now I can create kind of quite a sort of interesting effects with these. So now I turn this, and also if I move these down a bit, I'll get more pixels because my footage is slightly longer. So let me play that, and you can see the difference that just even putting a blur on. So that's another thing that you can do with particles. You can also add the glow to them if you wish. So I'm going to turn that box blow off. It's still there. I can turn it back on if I wish, but you can turn the effect on and off, or you can delete it by pressing delete. The other thing that's powerful about filters is that, along with all of the different types of shapes that you can use, and some of them are extremely bizarre, and I don't understand what you would use them for ever. But some of you could, if you wish, use cubes, and it certainly makes an interesting effect. I'm not sure what the effect would be, but they do make interesting effects. But the one down here, which is very interesting, is shaded disk and shaded square. And what they do, let me just show you quickly what they do. So if I create a new shape layer, so I'm going to create a new shape layer, and I am going to create a shape. And so I will create a, what can I create? I'm going to create my own crazy shape. That will do. So there is my crazy shape, which is not particularly exciting, but that's what it is. So in my, I can go to textured disk, and nothing has changed. In fact, I've got nothing, but it needs a texture. So the texture layer I'm going to use the shape layer. So now all of these, every single, if I turn the shape layer off, because you don't need it on, all of these are now one of these particles, which is quite an interesting thing because you can do some interesting things with it. So, for instance, you could put a movie in there, you could put anything you like, really, and something like this, you can animate that. So you can animate that, and it animates everything else because this is a shape layer. You could turn this layer 3D, and then you can rotate this on the Y. So you can do lots of interesting things with it. So if you think about the potential of what you could do, and on to another level, if I go into here and I could create a new composition, and I could animate that composition with something very exciting in the middle of it. So let me just create, I'm going to create a star. So there's a star, which is my shape layer. I'm going to duplicate that shape layer. I'm going to turn them both 3D. I'm going to take this one, and I am going to rotate it. I'm going to move that one there. So now, both of these, if I rotate those, I get quite an interesting shape. And I could take that composition and I could push it into another composition, and I could use that as a shape layer in order to create some animation. I'll just center that up. Now I've got this, which is kind of almost like a sort of weird Christmas decoration. I'll colour one so they kind of looks a little bit more, it's a little bit easier to see. Change the fill to red. So now I've got this, and I'm going to parent that one to that, and I'm going to transform this, and I'm going to change the rotation from transform once, and it does that. So it's a pretty weird, it's a pretty weird animation, but it doesn't really matter. And then when I go back into my fruit layer, I can bring in comp1, and here I can use my texture can be comp1. It's going to be slow because there's lots of animation going on now. So now when I've got this comp layer as a 3D layer doing its thing, which is, you can see the potential of what you can do with this. And so you could create logos and shapes and spacecraft and all of that kind of stuff. And that's about it for this lesson.